Guys, I have a confession to make. I am guilty of a deadly sin. Which one? Actually, all of them at times, but right now, I am guilty of envy. That's right, I'm envious. Of who? Well, of everyone who can afford to buy any of these new pieces from the new Fear of God Ermenegildo Zegna collaborative collection. I mean, they're all absurdly expensive, but the nicest pieces are at an ungodly level, retailing for over $2,000, $3,000. But here's the thing, and y'all will know this from watching my channel, I can't stand not owning the clothes that I want. So what am I gonna do about it? Well, I'm gonna max out all my credit cards, go into crippling debt, go into bankruptcy, live out of a motel for a while before heading west in search of something, anything with meaning, at which point I'll be robbed and left for dead in Omaha, Nebraska by a guy with a limp named Zachariah. Cold and tired and penniless, I will warm myself with my lamb's wool Fear of God Zegna jacket as I cry myself to sleep. Well, that's one way I could go about it. Or I could attempt to achieve that look for cheap. Let's try that option out. But before we get going, I've looked into it and a very, very tiny percentage of you are actually subscribed to the channel. So it doesn't cost you anything. If you like the content I make, just click that subscribe button and I thank you profusely. Let's get a little background on this whole thing in case you need a little context. So this new collection is a collaboration between two luxury clothing companies, Fear of God and Ermenegildo Zegna. It's a really cool one because they're two really different brands, but when you put them together, you realize how much they actually have in common. Fear of God is the much younger of the two. It was founded by Jerry Lorenzo, coincidentally the son of a famous baseball player and manager. Despite having no training in clothing, he founded Fear of God in 2012 around high-end streetwear staples. Even though they're totally unique, they fall into that same luxe streetwear category as brands like Alix and Off-White. What does that mean? It means they made sweatpants and hoodies, among other things of course, but they made them really, really well. They also did it clean, without the excessive patterns or branding that most other streetwear brands do. Usually, that wouldn't really be a recipe for success. I mean, there are countless other companies making pieces like that. And I don't think there are a ton of people who wake up thinking, I want to buy a blank sweatshirt for $400 today. But the quality and the signature oversized silhouettes of the brand really spoke to people, to the point where they now have to be considered one of the most important American fashion brands. Ermenegildo Zegna's history is just a wee bit longer, by 100 years or so. The interesting thing about them is that their key strength has been their strength from day one. High-quality fabrics. Zegna himself founded a wool mill in Italy with a dream to create the best fabrics the world had ever seen. And that's still really what they're known for, more than anything else. They're kind of like a fashion version of Exhibit and Pimp My Ride.
Well, I heard you like luxury textiles, so I built a silk factory on your wool mill with a dyeing and finishing plant on top.
And that's true. They've got factories for wool, for silk, for hats, and slow hand-woven materials, for jersey and more. They don't just use them for their own clothes either. They provide the materials that brands like Gucci, Tom Ford, and Saint Laurent use. If you've really been listening with your sound peepers, you'll notice that I haven't actually said anything about their clothes yet. That's because the clothes themselves are often kind of forgettable. They're super high quality, sure, but the silhouettes and design tend to be really classic and conservative. If you happen to come from a family with money, it's way more likely that your dad or grandpa wears Zegna than you do. But that's exactly why it's so smart for them to do this collab with Fear of God. They really use their noodles on this one, because these days, the fuel that drives the entire fashion industry is hype. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just different. In the heyday of Zegna, they got their sales because people went into places like Nordstrom or Neiman Marcus and tried the clothes on and could tell how high quality they were. Either that or the salesperson at one of those stores told them so. That's how they ended up in your grandpa's dresser. But now it's really more about who's getting worn in Instagram pictures, who is hypebeast writing about, and who is Virgil talking up. And that's why Zegna has fallen behind in recent times. So the brand is currently led by designer Alessandro Sartori. He's been in the Zegna family of brands for almost 20 years, and knows the company well, and surely also knows its shortcomings. He looked around the modern fashion landscape and surprisingly saw a kindred spirit in Jerry Lorenzo. I mean, it's not as crazy as it seems. They're both into creating the highest quality clothes they can, whether it's sweatpants or a tailored suit. I've actually been slobbering over this collaboration for a long time now. They actually announced it in February, about a month before that thing happened. You know, the C-word thing that YouTube hates people talking about and which I therefore won't say by name. But why was I so excited about it? You'd think it's because I was just really into anything Fear of God does, which as a refined hypebeast is true, I suppose. But it's actually because I'm quite familiar with Ermenegildo Zegna clothes as well. That's because I am a prolific clothing flipper. I'm that annoying guy flipping through every item at Goodwill just looking at the tags. You know, lowballing you on Grailed like a D-bag. How do you think I afford all the fancy clothes on the channel? And Zegna is a good, though not great, resale brand. They're good to resell because they are a luxury brand with large market penetration, which means they pop up in thrift stores much more often than you'd think. On the flip side, they're not great to resell because that market penetration also means that they have one of the absolute worst retail price to resale price ratios of any luxury brand. So like I said, I know this brand well. I know that you're lucky to get $25 for a button-down that costs $3.95 at retail, or to get $60 for a blazer that retailed for over $600. That's rough, but still worth it if you got that button-down for $5, which happens way more often than you'd think. Anyway, back to this collab. It finally released, and it was just as glorious as I had hoped. Actually, more so. They took the exact aspects of Fear of God's design language that fit Zegna's refined menswear the most, and did it all in the absolute best fabrics on God's green earth. I mean, the color palette, the silhouettes, the fabrics. Look at this wool trench or this nubuck shirt. They are God tier. But the piece in the collection that really spoke to me more than anything else was this gray wool jacket. Everything about it just hits right, from the color to the cut to the fit. But then I looked at that price. Alert, alert. And I remembered that dreaded Omaha scenario. I wanted this piece, but I didn't want to end up there. But then I remembered, hey, I've got the skill set for this. I know how to get Zegna for cheap. And is this piece really all that different from pieces they've already made? There must be something out there. If I could just find the right Zegna piece at the right price, a size up or two from my normal size to mimic that fit, maybe, just maybe, I could make this work. I became obsessed. I went places you'd never even want to imagine. Places of darkness and hatred and violence, and I went to a place inside myself so black and cold that I wasn't sure I'd ever come out. I'm just kidding, I went to all the places I go anyway, the apps and thrift stores that have this stuff for cheap. Except now, I had a mission. I was on Depop, I was on Grailed and eBay, I was at every Goodwill and Podunk Church thrift shop. And by the way, no Karen, I don't want to round my total up as a donation to help your little boy Kevin pray the gay away. It was tough, it was brutal, I had highs and lows, there were so many times I thought I'd found it. There it is! Oof, look at that price, you're out of your mind, dude. Oh, there, does that tag say Zegna? Nope, it says zebra. So close. And I did have some minor wins along the way. I found some very nice Zegna blazers. Even though I'll likely only get $50 out of them, it's worth it if I buy them for a fraction of that. I was relentless. I searched and searched. My hands cramped and I ate a banana to re-up my potassium. I would become parched and drink a Fresca to bring me back to health. And then, finally, after years, and by years I mean days of work, I found it. My holy grail. Let's take a look. So why did I pick this one? I mean, it's about as good as it gets. It's a jacket. It's a woven fabric. It's gray. It's a zip up. It's collared. It has outer pockets. It's got big volume. Actually, to mimic the fit of the Fear of God collection, this piece is a full 3 sizes bigger than my normal size. It's an extra large, whereas I'm a true to size small. This piece is Brock Lesnar and I'm Mighty Mouse Johnson. Is this jacket a perfect match? No. It doesn't have the elasticated waist or cuffs that the Fear of God piece does, and the pockets are horizontal rather than diagonal. But you know what is perfect? The price. I got this jacket for so cheap that I'm not even going to tell you how much I paid for it out of fear that I'll be called out as a liar. $8. And I'm also not going to tell you where I got it in case people end up getting trampled because it gets overrun with others looking for deals like this. Salvation Army. Now, this piece is old enough that it's not currently being sold anywhere, but the closest versions I could find from Zegna retail in the $2,000 range. So let's do some quick math here. Beep boop, beep boop, boop, beep. It looks like we got this for, 99.6% off retail. I was really hoping for 99.9, but I'll take it. So now that we've got our own version of my favorite Fog Zegna piece, let's look at some of the details. I love how nice and light it is. Despite being a fully lined jacket, it really flows as you move. What makes it so light? What's it made of? Air? No. Unlike most jackets, especially from Zegna, which are usually primarily wool, this one is 70% cotton. High quality cotton surely, but nothing too crazy yet. Oh, but see, it's also 10% silk. Now we're getting really luxury. So that's where some of that lightness and softness comes from. Got it. But what about the last 20%? Well, that must be made of hemp? Oh.
All right.
Side note, that was just a joke. I know you can't get high off hemp. I'm not a dork. I was buying K2 at the local Valero station at 15 years old, I'll have you know. And just look at that weave, like tiny cream-colored diamonds. It doesn't get better than that. Another thing I really like about this is the massive pockets. I could fit like 50 packs of sour Skittles in there, if I were so inclined, no reason. And remember, I said the whole thing was lined? Yup, with a beautifully glossy gray Bemberg rayon. And the inner pocket's got a nice little weave around it, really nice touches. Of course, with Zegna, everything is high quality, down to the zipper, which is a premium Riri model. So, we did it. We got a Fear of God Zegna jacket for 99.6 off. Well, obviously that's not true at all. Let's try that again. We got a very high quality facsimile of a Fear of God Zegna jacket for 99.6% off. That's better. Honesty is key, guys. So, what's the moral of this video? Does there need to be one? Haven't I given you enough? Jeez. Really though, the thing to remember here is that you don't need to go into debt and end up homeless in Omaha for your clothes. I know hype is really hard to ignore, but I'm telling you, you can find really high quality versions of pieces from your favorite brands for way cheaper. Of course, it's rarer than Zegna, but you can do this same thing with Gucci or Louis Vuitton if you know where to look. I know because I've thrifted both. So, let me know what you think. Did I do a good job with this one, or does my jacket look like shit? Let me know in the comments below. And take a look at the other video on screen here, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and I'll see you next time.